Science fiction rules, and so do the video games that fall in that category. So today we're talking about 20 of the best sci-fi games of 2019. Starting off with number 20, let's talk about Earth Defense Force 5. This is a series we've kind of sung the praises for quite a while. It's a little bit underrated, but it's kind of incredible when you think about it. Essentially, it's one part Starship Troopers mixed with a dash of good old Japanese culture and Japanese classic monster movies. Essentially, you play as soldiers on the ground and you're fighting giant bugs. They've been doing it for multiple games, and honestly, the formula has worked for me pretty much every time with each one I've played. EDF 5 steps it up even more with just, bigger everything. Bigger levels, bigger explosions, more hordes of endless enemies, giant buildings to destroy, mechs you can control, and online co-op. This one has more missions than any one before it, and while it kind of falls away from like the corny old school style that some of the earlier games had that I really liked, it still feels distinctly unique. EDF 5 is definitely one of those like turn off your brain style games, but it's you as a lone soldier, as like a variety of different classes, but you fight off against giant bugs and aliens, and it's awesome. This is honestly the simplest game on the list, but that does not make it a bad thing at all. It's on all the major platforms, and if you haven't checked out any of these games yet, I highly advise you start because they haven't stopped making them for a reason. Next, over at number 19, we have No Man's Sky Beyond. This was the kind of complete relaunch and rebirth of the No Man's Sky game from a few years ago that didn't quite meet expectations, but the reason why we're including it on this list, maybe you've seen our Before You Buy we updated on this game, is that it really reaches its potential. It's a whole different game, and it's much more for the better. The core loop is pretty much the same. It's more of a survival game than you running around shooting aliens or anything like that, but it's just so much more refined, the loop more interesting, and just there's a lot more to do. Every system is finally fully thought out. There's more ships, the graphics are better, there's a fully playable VR mode. Crafting is expanded but also a little more interesting. There's quality of life updates, including just managing inventory is a little less annoying now. And worlds are way more diverse and unique, and even space combat is actually fun now. This game has had a complete overhaul, and although a lot of us were burned on our $60 purchase back when it released, wasn't quite what we wanted, they put their money where their mouth is, and now, if you go back to it, it's a really damn good game. So we're including it on this list because we think you should consider it. It's a very, very good space exploration survival game, and we're really happy to say that now. Moving on over to number 18, we have Age of Wonders Planetfall. This is a 4X turn-based strategy game, and it's actually the 5th installment of the Age of Wonders games, this one having a new sci-fi setting, so it's a big deal for the series. These games are absolutely compelling, and it's worth pointing out that we don't get enough 4X strategy-style games anymore, especially not ones that are on PC as well as console, so more people are getting exposed to this type of stuff, and the sci-fi setting really works for Age of Wonders, so consider checking it out. And next at number 17, we have Space Engineers, a game that definitely took Steam by storm early on in the year, and for good reason. It's a sandbox game that gives you a little bit of exploration, some survival elements, and of course, lots of engineering and constructing stuff. But you're not just stuck in one place. There's a lot of planetary travel, there's combat, you have to pilot a ship, there's also ship combat. Space Engineers is loved by people because it's got a little bit of everything, anything you'd want from a space game. It gives you some of the more engaging first-person elements, like, first-person shooting combat, stuff like that, but also, you get that taste of something like Kerbal Space Program or other builder and management style games where you actually have to really use your brain, and there's some impressive physics work involved. It's had some issues with bugs here and there, but generally, PC players are really loving it, and it's a unique sci-fi game to include on this list, so that's why it's here. But over at number 16, we have The Surge 2. There has to be a sci-fi game on this list that has some sort of Dark Souls inspiration, and that is definitely The Surge 2. First of all, if you didn't play the first Surge, what were you doing? You really missed out on a great Souls-like game that takes that genre and puts a really good spin on it. Essentially, you are a robot man. I mean, you're like a guy with an exoskeleton strapped to him, but you were constantly killing enemies and grinding and leveling up, but also equipping new parts onto your body. The combat is fun, engaging, very challenging, the world mysterious, and The Surge 2 really amps it up with like a new city-style environment, a little more post-apocalyptic, more enemy types, more weapon types, more finishers, and also more lore. If you saw our Before You Buy, we weren't really into the story stuff, but the gameplay through and through is amazing. Robot Dark Souls is badass, and you should absolutely check out The Surge 2, if not The Surge 1. Next at number 15, we have Crackdown 3. Yes, that released this year. Do you remember that? One of the few Xbox exclusives of the year. Didn't quite meet everybody's lofty expectations, but we here still found it to be a fun game. The multiplayer was not really worth the time, but if you're looking for a good single-player game where you can turn off your brain and run and jump and jet around a futuristic city environment and blow stuff up with weird high-tech weapons and fight robots, mechs, soldiers, criminals of all kinds, Crackdown 3 works as a really good playground for that, and we stand by it. Does it really change up much from the games that released like a console generation ago? No, not at all. But you know what? It's simple, good fun, and it's harmless for that. Moving on over to number 14, we have Ace Combat 7, a game which is, a little lighter on the science fiction side, but the technology behind the airplanes and just everything going on is very interesting. These Japanese-developed dogfighting games actually have way more beneath the surface, lots of story between warring fictional countries, and it's actually really interesting. Ace Combat 7 really is like the first one to truly come to the heights of current generation graphics and technology. The other games felt a little more old school. This one has a bit more going on graphically. It looks great. There's a little bit of like an optional VR mode, and the stakes are a lot higher this time with really cool over-the-top like boss battles and fights and engagements with active weather systems and high-tech weaponry, making everything chaotic almost every single mission. If you're into aerial dogfighting games, this might look like another one, but it's more unique than you'd think. There's a lot more story, and it's actually pretty interesting. If you're into Japanese games and you're into airplanes and Top Gun and stuff, Ace Combat 7 really steps it up. But next over at number 13, we have Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. This is the game's massive update of the year, and it's the first big, huge one where Bungie is unshackled from the chains of Activision so they can do whatever they want. And Bungie can make a damn good sci-fi game. And while Destiny 2, doesn't have like the most positive public perception, at least if you look at forums and stuff, the game is jam-packed with active players and a wonderful community of people that absolutely love these games. And Shadowkeep really shakes things up. First of all, the game is now on Steam. That's absolutely huge for people. But there's new missions and quests. There's new destinations and a dungeon, new weapons and gear. A lot of the gear systems are like kind of redone. There's a new raid, and essentially just way more Destiny 2. And if you are a Destiny 2 player, chances are you're looking for that. And it seems like you get it here because it's out now. Next at number 12, we have Daemon X Machina. We really wanted to give Nintendo Switch some love on this list, and absolutely Daemon X Machina fits the bill because it's a mech game. And if you ask me, I don't think there's anything really more science fiction than mech stuff. You command this arsenal mech and you fight other mechs. There's a main hub between missions. That's where you can customize your mech. You can play and defeat enemies and scavenge for different armor types and weapon types and generally have a good time. It's from the producer behind the Armored Core series, so there is some pedigree there. It has co-op modes, and it's also going to get an expanded competitive mode, and like with the fairly satisfying combat, that should make things really interesting. Really, it's just a highly interesting game with fun robots, a cool looking world that you actually might care about a little bit, and the combat is addictive. It's a pretty lengthy game too, so you definitely get your money's worth if you like mech games. Consider it. Next over at number 11, we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Or is it Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? Whatever it is, it's called Fallen Order, and you play as a Jedi in between the prequels and the classic series, kind of filling in the blanks of what's going on here, and you play as Cal Kestis, a young Padawan who was cast out and in hiding after the events of Order 66, who has kind of grown up in secret, hiding his Jedi powers. But of course, it's a Star Wars video game, so it's time to use a lightsaber and kill some stormtroopers. That seems to be the name of the game here, with a ship that serves as a hub, and you can bounce between different planets. There are Metroidvania-style elements where you'll learn more force powers, and your little droid companion will learn new ways to access new areas for you to revisit. I really hope the story is compelling. I don't know so far, but it does seem interesting, especially considering it's dealing with a lot of good lore stuff with the Inquisitors and just filling in some more blanks that, mainstream Star Wars fans haven't seen before. The combat looks fun and engaging. We're a little skeptical because it's EA. They've screwed up a Star Wars game before, but Respawn is developing it, the people behind Apex Legends and the incredible Titanfall 2. So, fingers crossed. That's it. We love Star Wars. We hope this is good. Next, over at number 10, we have Astral Chain, another science fiction game for the Nintendo Switch, and it's a bit of a divisive one. Some people are, kind of split on it. We're on the side of, we really liked it. It's cool, it's different, it's unique, and it's a Platinum game. Platinum, of course, makes some incredible action, adventure, sci-fi games, and Astral Chain is incredibly hacky, slashy. You play as police officers in a futuristic city, utilizing technology, as well as engaging in the supernatural and taking advantage of these legions, which are these kind of things that are chained to you that you can control in combat. It makes things very interesting. There's not a ton of them to collect in the game, but it's a little unlike things you've seen before, and there's a lot of close quarters combat, there's some range stuff. And if you like comboing and dodging and going crazy in dungeons and in an overworld, Astral Chain might be your thing. Like I said, it's extremely Platinum. If you've played a Platinum game before, be it Bayonetta, Vanquish, whatever you want, this fits right in. Now over at number 9, we have Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 has been exploding. It has tons of technical issues that we think Gearbox still needs to work out, but it seems like it is genuinely satisfying most Borderlands fans. It is very much more Borderlands, but it is for this generation of consoles, and there's a lot to do. The endgame has been greatly expanded, with badass rankings being replaced by Guardian rankings. Not only that, the game has an insane amount of interesting guns and grenades to play with. Also, with the guns having really impressive alternate fire modes for a lot of them, the amount of guns and weird technology going on in this game is incredible. Plus, the fact that you have interplanetary travel. You have the Sanctuary ship as your home base, and you can bounce around to different planets, be it desert stuff like Pandora or the city of Meridian. There is a lot to love here, and the Borderlands universe has definitely been expanded here. Like we said, at the time of making this video, we think the game still needs some fixes technically, but it's a good, fun Borderlands game. Chaos is everywhere, RPG numbers go up, and it's just a good time, especially with friends. Next at number 8, we have Observation, a game we definitely wanted to give a shout out to for its unique storytelling abilities. It's roughly around 6-7 hours, and essentially you're solving a mystery aboard a space station, trying to figure out what happened to the crew, and you're doing it through, Observation, the name of the game. You essentially take control of the artificial intelligence on board the ship, and through cameras and computer terminals and stuff, you move around the ship observing and learning what happened. Essentially some people can call it a walking simulator, but you're not really walking, and the story is really, really interesting, so it's worth checking out. Also, did I mention that it's a horror game, and it's actually pretty spooky? It's not like hardcore crazy jump scares and monsters, but it's deeply unsettling and very atmospheric. If that sounds like your jam, I'd say go for this one. Now next at number 7, we have Outer Wilds, which don't get it confused with the Outer Worlds. We keep messing it up, but the Outer Wilds is something that you should absolutely keep on your radar if you like a little more calm, relaxing, thinking man space exploration game. What we have here is an incredibly unique game that most people that have picked it up and played it have instantly fell in love with it thanks to its charm, its really creative environment design and creature design, and just everything. It feels very much like an indie PC game, but you can play it on multiple platforms, and it's very, very unique. It might not be everybody's speed, but it's really smart, well made, and just genuinely charming. So if it wasn't on your radar before, we put it up on this list pretty high for a reason, so maybe think about it. Over at number 6, we have Gears 5. No longer called Gears of War, they dropped the war, now it's just Gears, but there's still like a war. You're still doing lots of cool running and gunning and shooting and hiding behind waist-high walls. But thankfully, they haven't really half-assed it. This game is filled with different modes, a lot of expansions upon Gears 4, which was alright. Gears 5 really takes it up to the next level. The campaign is interesting, there are open sections, there are vehicles, the stakes are much higher and a little bit more interesting with what they got going on with the characters. Then of course there's the new escape mode, as well as horde mode, which is better than ever. And then of course there's your standard versus. It seems like Gears of War fans have generally been enjoying this one. Honestly, we really just like the world and the lore and everything that was established with Gears of War 1, 2, and 3. And it's been interesting to see how a new studio takes it up with Gears 4, Gears 5, and then hopefully Gears 6. We still love the original games more than anything, but all these games are just really good alien shooting simulators. Next up at number 5, we have Rebel Galaxy Outlaw. This takes place 30 years prior to Rebel Galaxy, and if you've played these games, you know it focuses around trading, pirating, and bounty hunting. This game is an absolute cult hit for a reason. Space nerds absolutely freaking love it. It generally just feels bigger than its predecessor. There are 40 solar systems to explore though. The main character is interesting, and just generally the vibe, the story, the dialogue, it's got some unique aspects to it. not only that, it's also very engaging and challenging. Piloting a ship, navigating, takes, real actual input other than just like holding the go button. Not only that, everything about it is, like I said, just harsh and pretty challenging and also satisfying. A lot of people have said that there's a lot more focus on combat and stuff compared to the previous games, like, more having fun and trading and stuff, but it still doesn't really lose its thing. And if we're talking about things, like if this is your thing, we definitely recommend checking it out. But over at number 4, we have Metro Exodus, one of the earlier games to release this year, but it should not be forgotten because it might be the best Metro game. This one opened up to more open-ended environments. The more you explore, the more you venture out, the more equipment you can find for your dude Artyom, and generally, it's a really fantastic game. It takes the Metro story, what we've had so far, and brings it to some interesting places and just feels fresh while, maintaining what made the previous games important. Even if you're out in open environments, it's still scary. It's still nerve-wracking. You're still worried about surviving in this harsh post-apocalyptic landscape. There are more creatures, there are more things trying to kill you, but thankfully you have a little bit more technology and more tools and more allies at your disposal, and that makes things pretty interesting. If you watch our Before You Buy, we absolutely freaking loved this game. We think it's one of the best games of the year, so you should check it out. Now, coming down to number 3, we have The Outer Worlds. At the time of making this video, the release is right around the corner, but from what we've seen and played at E3 and stuff like that, we're really looking forward to this one. Essentially, it is a new Obsidian game. If you know and love Obsidian, the makers of stuff like Pillars of Eternity, Fallout New Vegas, hell, even Alpha Protocol, you just know that they know how to make, craft, and write some good, compelling RPGs. And honestly, The Outer Worlds seems like they're just playing to their strengths 100%. It almost feels, we hate to be reductive like this, but it seems like Fallout New Vegas 2. It takes some of the Fallout systems and kind of realizes that some people didn't totally get what they wanted with Fallout 4, and they go deeper and nerdier and more systems-based here to kind of fill that void left in some RPG fans' hearts, and we think it's really cool. There's disguise systems, there's charisma systems, you can be a scientist, you can make more powerful weapons, you can just brute force your way through things, you can sneak your way through things. The world they're establishing here is like a space exploration world owned by corporations. It's very cynical, but kind of funny. We're really hoping this one shapes up great. It's definitely one of our most anticipated games of the year, second only to our number 2 pick, and that is Death Stranding. If there's not a more sci-fi game than this, I don't know what to tell you, man. Still, at the time of making this video, the game is releasing in early November, and we still don't quite know how to describe it. Essentially, you are Sam Porter Bridges, played by Norman Reedus, and you are tasked with reconnecting American cities. You are sort of a delivery man, maybe a little bit of a soldier. There are also some interdimensional things going on that maybe we just don't need to dive into right now. But it all looks like it's placed in a little bit of like an open-ended, open world-ish style game. Sam can use multiple modes of transportation, including sprinting with exoskeleton legs, as well as riding vehicles. Series creator Hideo Kojima has talked up a lot of community and connection and the way the game works online and how players can help each other. Seems pretty unique, but ultimately we're still just looking forward to this game because we're big fans of Hideo Kojima, series creator of Metal Gear Solid. He's a legend for a reason, and with this completely new and unique science fiction IP, we hope he can strike gold once again. We will have to wait and see if our questions are answered on November 8th, 2019. But down to number 1, one of our absolute favorite science fiction games of the year is Control, a game that has been criminally underrated so far. Not enough people are talking about it, but it is Remedy's new game. The creators behind most recently Quantum Break, before that Alan Wake, and before that the original Max Payne games. Control kind of serves as like a best of everything they've learned from making all of their games. It's way better than Quantum Break if you played that previously and were kind of on it. It's a third-person shooter with some telekinetic powers, but it's way more than that. It's an open-ended structure in one single mysterious interior, and I gotta say, like, the vibe of the game is like a little bit of everything. It's a bit Twin Peaks, it's a lot of X-Files, a little bit of Ghostbusters mixed in. Really, it wears all of its influences on its sleeves, and it's creepy, it's mysterious, and honestly, downright satisfying. The combat is fun and addictive. The environment, the building of the oldest house is an absolute blast to explore, especially once you gain more powers and special abilities, and then you can kind of get access to other areas you couldn't previously and find new mysteries and learn more about this world. It is the perfect blend of science fiction and horror and weird mystery and a bunch of other stuff we don't want to spoil sale. It's a really special game, and we highly, highly recommend it. Those are some sci-fi games that should be on your radar from 2019, but we got a couple of bonuses for you, including Mech Warrior 5 Mercenaries. Of course, if you love a Mech Warrior game, there's finally a new one. And if you're looking for something a little bit more combative, we also have Splitgate Arena Warfare. But the magic of this list is that this is just 20 of our picks. There are so many other science fiction or science fiction adjacent games out there that have released in 2019. So we want to hear from you guys in the comments. If you've got your own top 5, your own top 10 of your favorite sci-fi games of this year, let us have it. Let us know down in the comments. Maybe you can recommend a game to some other people down there. But if you enjoyed this video and maybe learned about a game or two, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We would really appreciate that, man. And if you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. Hey, as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.